This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers, that is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 136, entitled MGTOW/Masculist, Punishment of Women. Description. This flyer shows how women are being punished by MGTOW/Masculists for being fluffy parasites, for being feminazi bitches, for financially massacring divorced fathers in the divorce courts, etc. Our main strategy is to force fluffies and fluffy feminists to rot on the shelf by being totally ignored by men. Men have the power to force women to be nice to men, or they will be punished. Now the flyer itself. MGTOW/Masculist, Punishment of Women. This flyer is directed more at women than men. It transmits the message that, quote, if you women are not nice to men, you will be punished, end quote. Men have the means to punish women that women do not have to punish men if they want it, and that is economic power. Most men are FIPs, financially independent persons. They are socialized to be like that, and in practice there's not much else men can do in their lives, since they cannot make babies the way women can. So they have to be careerist FIPs, ad-libbing here. A decade maybe, more or less, men will be able to grow their own babies in artificial wombs, art wombs, a coming massive revolution. Back to the flyer. Women increasingly are not nice to men. Traditionally, women have been fluffies, traditional women who expect to be able to parasite off a man's money, treating men as cash machines, to pay for fluffies to live in a middle-class house to raise her kids in. 10 years later, she will often get bored with him and then use the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts to financially massacre him, taking his kids, his house, forcing him to pay child support, and if she's a fluffy, forcing him to pay alimony, so that she can remain a parasite of him after the divorce, the way she was before the divorce. So to you women out there, I hope you understand why men are so fucking angry at fluffies. Increasingly, fluffy feminists are dumping on men in public, at meetings, on the media, in the movies, in the newspapers, etc. Fluffy feminists will put all the blame for women's situation on men, and rarely on themselves. The reality that roughly one married father in 4 in the US is being financially massacred has caused a massive backlash from men, especially young men under 35, who have witnessed firsthand what happened to their fathers and have resolved never to get married and have kids because it's too risky. The fluffy feminists and the gender politicians have made divorce and hence marriage too toxic for men. The divorce courts are massively gender biased in favour of women and don't give a shit about men's plight. These fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts see men as cash machines and have no interest in men's welfare at all. So, not surprisingly, men are going on strike in massive numbers. In the US and Japan, 70% of young men under 35 refuse to marry, refuse to have kids, spend their money on themselves, and are joining forces into men's lib-type movements, e.g. MGTOW, that's men going their own way, that's MGTOW. MRM, men's rights movement, and the Masculists, men's libbers, a kind of politically minded MGTOW. Men have the power to punish women, to force women to be nicer to men. Otherwise, women will and are increasingly paying a heavy price for their misandry. For example, the Masculists are putting enormous moral pressure on women to be FIPs, financially independent persons, so that they're not fluffies who expect to parasite off the money of some manslave. Masculists see fluffies as immoral, parasitic, manslaving vermin to be wiped out, not by killing them, but by simply having nothing to do with them, not even sexing them, as punishment for being manslavers. MGTOW/Masculists are increasingly adopting the twee-twef lifestyle, in brackets, 2A, 2F, equals 2 apartments, 2 FIPs, where the man and the woman are both FIPs, each with their own apartment. When the relationship sours, they both walk away to their own apartments, cost-free for the man. By tway-tweffing, a man gets the regular sex he needs without paying the traditional price of being a manslave to some bloody fluffy parasite. Tway-tweffing forces the woman to be nice to the man. Otherwise, the man walks. She knows this, so is motivated not to nag, not to withhold sex, not to try to mould him. Otherwise, he walks. Tway-tweffing MGTOW/masculist males refuse to pair off with fluffies. Fluffies rot on the shelf, being punished for being manslaving vermin. Masculists tell women, especially young women, quote, "Be fip or be manless. No calculus, no baby." The primary political goal of the masculists is to wipe out fluffydom by wiping out fluffies, by forcing them to rot on the shelf to extinction. The masculists want to see the creation of a FIP society, capital F, capital S, in which all adults of both sexes are FIPs, and socialized to be FIPs, by parents, by teachers, by professors, by the media, by social unconscious expectation. Those women who are not FIPs are being increasingly punished because they're made to be, quote, manless, loveless, sexless, babyless, poor, and increasingly shunned by a more masculist-oriented society as people in the billions wake up to the massive gender injustices committed against men, end quote. Masculists put strong moral pressure on young 16-year-old fluffy crappers, that is, young women who choose to study fluffy crap, that is, the intellectually less demanding subjects at high school, that is, non-math, non-sciences, so that they're forced to study fluffy crap at university, because the FIP major, for example, STEM, that's STEM, science, tech, engineering and math, and the professions departments, exclude them because they studied fluffy crap at high school. These fluffy crappers then become fluffies in their 30s, when their biological clocks start ticking hard, and they realise they can't afford to live in a middle-class house on their fluffy crapper salaries. So they start looking around for some gullible manslave who has not had his masculine/MGTOW consciousness raised, who will pay for her to do what she wants, that is, have him pay for the house, for the kids, for her. Masculists see fluffy crappers as immoral and punish them. These young women are making a decision to be lazy in their teens, that a decade later will result in them being fluffies, looking for a manslave. These young women are being punished, pointed at by young masculists/MGTOWs and labelled fluffy crappers, future manslavers, or just plain fluffies, an abusive term coming from masculists. Fluffy feminists are particularly nasty towards men, blaming men for all women's troubles instead of looking into their own female inferiorities and taking some of the responsibility for their female situation. This type of fluffy feminist behaviour is childlike. Adults face up to their responsibilities and take responsibility for their own lives. Fluffy feminists don't. They are hypocrites who want equal rights with men but not equal obligations, especially when it comes to becoming FIPs and getting a FIP education. Over 3/4 of young women in high school study fluffy crap, dooming them to become fluffies as adults. The male-dumping, misandrist, feminazi bitch is the most hated of women by the MGTOW/masculists, who tops the list of the type of female that MGTOW/masculists and men in general refuse to have anything to do with. It's no coincidence that the majority of feminazis are, quote, fat fours, that is, often obese, hence sexually repulsive to men. 4 out of 10 in looks, so not very attractive to men. So they feel rejected by men, and being childlike, brackets, blameless, feminazis, they put the blame for their rejection by men on men instead of themselves. Feminazis are heftily punished by men to such an extent that young women are now witnessing the hatred expressed by men towards feminazi bitches and publicly avow that they are not feminists, because they know that if they do avow that they're feminists, they know that that's the kiss of death for them in terms of ever attracting the attention of a man, let alone getting a penis in them. Women in general are being punished by the MGTOW/masculists, and young men in general because young women are failing to have babies. This is a simple consequence of the man strike refusing to have kids. 2/3 of young women will go childless in the near future. If women don't join forces with the MGTOWs-Masculists to help men fare the gender laws, especially in the divorce courts and the paternity rejection right, then the MGTOWs-Masculists will continue to wipe out the population by refusing paternity. Thus, in a manner of speaking, the MGTOWs/Masculists are wiping out women and men altogether by not replenishing the population. This is the ultimate punishment of women. So if young women want men to give them babies, then they need to help men put huge moral and political pressure on the gender politicians to men-fare, it's the verb, to men-fare the gender laws, or the population will continue to fall. MGTOWs/Masculists are so angry at the massive gender injustice committed against men that they're prepared to wipe out the whole population unless they get gender justice for men. MGTOWs/Masculists are spreading their ideas to the general population so that society stops being misandrist and respects men who are, after all, the superior sex, who outperform women on nearly every scientifically measurable criterion. Men win 99% of the Science Nobel Prizes, have a 3 to 4 IQ point superiority over women in average IQ, and a 10% higher IQ variance than women. Men dominate the Who's Who books, create everything, build everything, engineer everything. Men must be respected or men will continue to go on strike, destroying whole populations. Men have the power to punish women. We will wipe out the fluffies by doing nothing with them. We use MGTOW/Masculist ideas to lash back at feminazis and never give them our penises. The female and male gender politicians will eventually be assassinated as the population really begins to crash, with the assassins being both male and female. The male assassins for reasons of wanting gender justice for men, and the female assassins for reasons of wanting men to give them babies. So in short, women, quote, women, be nice to men or be punished. We men have the power to do that to you. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name de GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW, Flyers. Ciao.